Hello, and welcome to another edition of Rail Rangers on the Road. The Midwest Rail Rangers, our 501c3 nonprofit organization, presents onboard educational programs across the Midwest. You may have caught us on the South Shoreline, between Chicago and South Bend, Indiana, aboard the Sky Parlor car at the Wisconsin Great Northern, on an Amtrak charter organized by the 20th Century Railroad Club of Chicago, on private rail excursions featuring heritage equipment, and at various outreach events such as Trainfest and Mad City Rail. In March of 2020, the coronavirus sidelined most of our programs. After taking a few months off, we returned with virtual programs, taking you to exciting rail destinations across Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, and Wisconsin. With 2021 now here, we hope to begin the transition back to doing in-person programs. During the months ahead, though, we will continue to bring you new virtual programs as well. So sit back and relax and enjoy another edition of Rail Rangers on the Road. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to our first virtual education program of 2021. Hope everybody had a good time off for the holidays.
Most definitely. And
some time for the New Year's. So we're back here on January 10th, 2021, with our, again, first virtual education program of the year, Midwest Rail Rangers. I'm Robert Taburn, our president of the organization.
And I'm Candace Taburn, your educational officer. Yeah. And we're taking you underground.
We are, because Candace, here it's January, going on the second week of January, and we're kind of like, where can we go live from on a Sunday night at 7 o'clock on January 10th, 2021, that's not under about 3 feet of snow right now, especially up here in the North Woods. So we did some research and said, well, what can we do to do our first, we want to do our first program live. And we said, well, the only place that doesn't have about 3 feet of snow right now up here in the North Woods is underground. And look at that, we got our hard hats on for you tonight, and we are coming to you from a cave. Or it's kind of a cave.
A copper mine.
A copper mine? Yes, we are at, we can put up some maps right here and show you where we are at. We're about as far north, for you folks in Chicago, if you get on U.S. Highway 41, which is Lakeshore Drive, and you head up and drive all the way to 8 hours north until Highway 41 ends near Copper Harbor, Michigan, up in the Keweenaw Peninsula up here. You end up in Copper Country. So what are we doing tonight? Broadcasting live from a copper mine for everybody back down 500 miles south of us tonight, watching us in partnership with, say hi everybody, the 20th Century Railroad Club. We are calling from a mine. What are we doing down in a mine besides avoiding all the snow up on the surface?
Well, we're going to give you some virtual tours of how railroads and national parks were born together, and let you know where you can go to national parks to enjoy train rides.
Was that just a bat?
Maybe.
Did you see that?
I did see that.
We're not kidding. There's something flying around behind the camera here. All right, I get a little scared. Well, okay, so yeah, we're going to talk about national. I'm trying to listen to you, and there's something literally flying around down here.
I've seen it too.
Okay. So yeah, what can you name? Before we begin our presentation for everybody, can you name 3 national park areas? Now, there's 419 National Park Service units across the country, and a surprising number of them, as you're about to learn this evening, have a connection between railroads of some sort. Some parks are solely based around railroads, like Steamtown in Pennsylvania, and Golden Spike out in Utah, which
Correct.
And some, maybe just have a little bit to do with a railroad. But can you name 3 National Park Service units here in the Midwest? Since we are the Midwest Rail Rangers, after all, 3 National Park units here in the Midwest, Candace, that have at least something to do with railroads.
Sure, I can. Of course, the one that we're at today, the Keweenaw National Historic Park.
Yes.
Mammoth Cave, one of my favorites.
It is, yes.
And the Cuyahoga Valley is also the third one.
Yeah, that's at least 3 of them. So let's go ahead and take a look this evening at our presentation, which is National Parks and Trains Growing Up Together.
So we're going to look at Parks and Trains, a rich tradition. We're going to start from the beginning of our presentation tonight. In May 10th of 1869, the Transcontinental Railroad was completed. And on March 1st, 1872, Yellowstone National Park was established. As you could tell, these 2 major features in American history, the first Transcontinental Railroad and our first national park being established, really happened to get in the same era, actually less than 3 years apart if you look at the dates. Now here's a map of U.S. railroads in 1915. As you can see, most of the railroads were centered in the Northeast, spreading into the Midwest region. Definitely from about the Missouri River to the east and pretty much north of the Mason-Dixon line. We're up there where some of the national parks were. As you can see, almost all of the national parks that were established by 1915 were really west of where there were a lot of roads and railroads. And Mount Rainier, established in 1899, Yosemite in 1890, Yellowstone in 1872, Wind Cave, South Dakota in 1903, Mesa Verde and Rocky Mountains in the early 1900s. So if there were not many railroads, there were definitely not a lot of roads to get to these national parks in the West, which made railroads a good way to get to these parks. Because again, if you think railroads were scarce in the far West, highways and roads were definitely even more scarce. So even 100 years ago, roads and highways were not really a practical way to reach most of the Western national parks. Many roads were dirt, and after a good rain, they were virtually a quagmire. The numbered U.S. highway system that we have today was not created until the 1920s, so roads at this time were a maze of named highways designated by colored bands on fences and telephone poles. Of course, it was very slow going too, especially in the remote western portions of the United States. Well, Candace, which way would you rather travel out west? How about that car that's stuck in the mud or that nice and beautiful shiny train?
I think the nice, beautiful, shiny train. Due to the remote nature of the Western National Parks, railroads provided the best means of transportation available to early visitors. Congress established the National Park Service in 1916 to care for some of the most important public lands in our country. The National Park Service quickly realized that the railroads would be a valuable partner. Most of the existing parks at the time could only be reached by rail. As the main transportation provider to these areas for years, railroads constructed lodging and public facilities at such parks as Yellowstone, Glacier, Yosemite, and the Grand Canyon National Parks. Here's a few of the advertisements from those trains. We have visit your Far West National Parks, USA and Canada. Then we have this summer's visit, Grand Canyon, North Rim, Zion, Bryce Canyon National Parks, Chicago in the Northwest.
Then we have the Union Pacific, Grand Canyon, better together with Zion and Bryce. Chicago Northwestern Canyon. Officials with the Great Northern Railroad actually helped to promote legislation that established Glacier National Park in 1910. Likewise, the Santa Fe built a branch line to the south rim of the Grand Canyon in 1901 and pushed Congress to designate the area a national park. Grand Canyon National Park was not authorized as a national park until 1919, partially delayed due to World War I. The railroads, including the Great Northern, launched an advertising campaign called See America First, encouraging wealthy travelers who would normally go to Europe to see the new national parks of the America West first. Hey Candace, do you know some of the historic lodges and national parks today were built by the railroads?
I did know that.
Did you? Oh, okay. Like what?
Like the Old Faithful Inn, Yellowstone's National Park's Northern Pacific Railroad built this one.
Yeah. How about the Great Northern?
Glacier Park Lodge was built by the Great Northern Railroad.
We got to stay there, I think, in 2019. And then the El Tovar Hotel, the Grand Canyon built, Santa Fe was involved in building that, the Grand Canyon.
Railroad execs hoped that by developing these lodges, restaurants, and other services for tourists in the national park, they would develop a monopoly on not only the transportation to the park, but would also then make money and also have a monopoly with all the concessions in the park too. Sometimes this worked out, and other times it did not.
That's right. The Utah Parks Company, a subsidiary of Union Pacific, held a lock on concessions in Bryce, Zion, and Cedar Breaks National Monument from the 1920s until 1972, when the railroad decided to end service. Now here's a map of Yellowstone. If you've ever been out there, we've been out there a couple times and had the chance to explore the park. And while there were no railroads that actually went into the park, there were railroads close by that pretty much served all of the major entrances, usually by bus or some other form of motor coach. Northern Pacific would bring passengers in the north entrance by Mammoth Hot Springs. Union Pacific would bring folks in the west entrance. South entrance to the Tetons, the Chicago Northwestern influence. The Burlington would use the east entrance near Cody. And the northeast entrance, which would use the Beartooth Highway, would be used by the Milwaukee Road. As you can see, these 5 railroads would compete to bring passengers to Yellowstone National.
Eventually, onboard educational programs were developed by railroads to entertain and educate passengers traveling to the national park. They had Indian guides on the Santa Fe. Here's some of their brochures and advertisements. Indian guides across New Mexico. The Great Northern would even offer members of the Blackfoot Indian tribe. They would greet visitors at East Glacier Park, Montana train depot and serve as guides.
And the Great Northern Railroad actually designed full-length dome cars called Great Domes during the 1950s. The Great Domes featured an all-glass top where first-class passengers could go up in and enjoy stunning views of Glacier National Park. The Empire Builder ran from Chicago to the Pacific Northwest. The Great Northern even arranged for National Park Service rangers to ride in the dome cars during the 1960s to narrate to passengers about what they were seeing while passing through portions of the park.
We'll now tell you about information about onboard services in the Amtrak era. For many years, Amtrak carried on the Santa Fe's tradition of having Native American guides aboard the Southwest Sheaf through the western New Mexico. Volunteer guides from the Intertribal Indian Ceremonial Association of Gallup, New Mexico would board to point out scenic highlights and discuss regional history with passengers on the trains. Those programs ended in 2004 when the guides wanted to be paid.
Apparently they didn't want to pay them. Well, then we come to Trails and Rails, which you could say was the predecessor of the Midwest Rail Rangers. In 1994, 3 National Park Service rangers with the Jean Lafitte National Historical Park in New Orleans used Amtrak's Sunset Limited passenger train to head to Texas to attend. The train's route took them across the Appalachia-Flya region, full of scenic swamps and bayous. The Rangers began to have informal conversations with passengers in the lounge car about the area. A marketing manager for Amtrak just happened to be aboard and saw how much passengers enjoyed having someone on board to talk about the scene. This chance encounter, as we'll call it, led Amtrak and the National Park Service to work together to develop a program where National Park Service rangers and volunteers would present onboard educational programs on trains. Some test programs in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas. Trails and Rails launched nationwide on various Amtrak routes in 2000. Narration is often presented for passengers in the trains. Now here's a look at some current and former Trails and Rails routes. As we mentioned, when we say current, it is now January 2021, and for the 2020 season, none of these operated. So this would have been current as of 2019 in the pre-COVID era. I know the plans for 2021 are currently still up in the air. So again, when we say current here in this slide, we are referring to what programs were around in 2019. Current programs in the Midwest include Indiana Dunes between Chicago and Michigan on the Wolverine and Bluewater, and down to St. Louis on the Texas Eagle and Lincoln Service trains. Former programs include on the Empire Builder from Chicago and Milwaukee to St. Paul, Chicago to Northeast Missouri on the Southwest Chief, and Kansas City to St. Louis on the Missouri Service trains. And you can see there were various current and former routes on here, and the routes, of course, are always changing, and probably will be expected to change quite some in the post-COVID.
Our organization was founded in December 2012 and was part of the Trails Rails program until 2015. Our volunteers provided onboard educational programs on the Southwest Chief. During the course of 2.5 years, our guides reached out to over 50,000 Amtrak passengers who rode the train from Chicago to La Plata, Missouri.
In 2015, our onboard educational efforts transitioned from Trails and Rails to a new self-managed program called the Midwest Rail Rangers. Al aboard now with the Midwest Rail Rangers to tell you a little bit more about what we do. By becoming the Midwest Rail Rangers, we were able to expand our onboard educational programs from just a single Amtrak train route to many different passenger railroad lines across the upper Midwest. This also gave our 501c3 nonprofit group more quality control over programs. Currently, the Midwest Rail Rangers present some of our onboard educational programs on private rail cars. These are historic 1950s era observation cars now owned by private individuals or companies. They are placed on the rear of regularly scheduled Amtrak trains, however, are only open to special holders. There's a photo of us from a few years ago on one of the private cars.
Yes, that's us on the back of that car waving at you guys right now.
Yeah, so you can see the regular Amtrak and how that private car is just added onto the back, and it was a special fare that people would pay, like the two gentlemen you see standing next to us would pay.
Here's an inside view of the car.
This is another one we did a program on, the Silver Lariats. Unfortunately, this was sold just recently from its private owners, Bert and his partner out in California, to the Cuyahoga Valley Railroad Museum. Oh, there's Robert Neal, our VP. Whoop, whoop.
Doing his thing.
Yeah. I think this was on the Hoosier State train going to Indiana when we did our programs on their private dome car.
The Midwest Rail Rangers onboard educational program on private cars usually takes place out of Chicago and can head to 7 different states across the upper Midwest. Some of the train route passes through various national park services and state parks, such as Mississippi National River in Minnesota, the Indiana Dunes National Park in Indiana, and the Gateway Arch National Park in Missouri.
And here's kind of a map of the various routes that the Rail Rangers have done our programs on. We've gone from up north, Chicago, Milwaukee, up to St. Paul. We've gone Chicago to Kansas City and La Plata, over to Quincy, Illinois. We've gone down to Springfield and St. Louis on that train line. I've done some of our excursions down to Champaign, Mattoon, and down to Carbondale, Lafayette, and Indianapolis. And we'll tell you a little bit more about the South Shore that we do that goes to South Bend Airport. And then we've done the Michigan route over to Kalamazoo, Detroit, and Pontiac. Since 2017, the Midwest Rail Rangers, as we mentioned, also present our programs on the South Shore line 2 to 3 weekends per month year-round between Chicago and South Bend. Of course, again, this was in the pre-COVID era, and we look forward to returning to the South Shore line hopefully later on this year in 2021.
The South Shore line is a 90-mile-long interurban rail line that passes from downtown Chicago to the historic steel-making areas of northwest Indiana, to the scenic Indiana Dunes, and into the farm country. The South Shore line passes through or near 2 units of the National Park Service, one being Pullman and the Indiana Dunes National Park, 2 of the other affiliated National Park units, and 4 state park lands, all in just 90 miles.
The South Shore line is one of the best ways to get to the Indiana Dunes State Park and the Indiana Dunes National Park. We are proud to present our programs in cooperation with NICD, or the Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District. Midwest Rail Rangers Interpretive Guides present ongoing narration from Chicago to South Bend about the people, places, and history that you'll see from your window, and other materials. Here's a news report from WSBT in South Bend, Indiana about our program. Our programs are presented free to all passengers who hold a valid train ticket. For a complete list of upcoming dates, check out dunestrain.com.
If you'd like to learn more about the Midwest Rail Rangers onboard educational program on the South Shore line and the history of the interesting railroad, we would love for you to come back and visit us to present another.
That's right. We also have special cancellation stamps that are available for collectors from riding the train from both the Midwest trails and rails. So you get these passport stamps. Of course, they're not real passport stamps like you'd have for your passport. They're just more of a commemorative thing that show the park that you visited, and then the date you visited and where it was located. So they're offered on, and we have those too for you.
Many national, state, and local parks across the country have junior ranger programs for children, teens, and even adults. Rail Rangers decided to create its own junior rail ranger program in October of 2015 to get kids and teens more interested in riding trains in the Midwest. Our Junior Rail Ranger book was written by Midwest Rail Ranger Educational Officer Candace Tabor.
I heard she's a good person there. Good cat.
And here's what it looks like. Here are some of the activities that are included in the book. And here I am swearing in 2 brand new Junior Rail Rangers.
I'm glad you said in. You're not swearing at them. You're swearing them in.
Swearing
not
in.
Swearing at them. Okay. You had me scared there for a minute. And here's a look at some of the other badges that you can get from various other Trains and Trails and Rails programs. So now we're going to take a look, switch gears a little bit, and kind of regain our focus on where we started, talking about how the National Park Service and trains have that rich tradition, with a look at some of the national park units that actually have a railroad. So, Candace, of the, 418, I think it's 419 now, units of the National Park Service, how many do you think at least have some link to trains and railroading?
Oh, I'm going to say...
So 419, we should update whoever did our graphics, I'm going to hit them with a wet noodle.
That's
so,
right.
Yeah.
I'd say maybe 10?
10? That'd be pretty good. That would be about 2-3%. So how many of you folks at home, how many National Park Service units of the 419 that are currently active, what do you think? Do you think Candace is right? Do you think it's 10? Do you think there's less than 10? Do you think there's more than 10? What is your guess? We'll give you a quick second here. Why don't you type your thoughts in the comments over on the right-hand side of our presentation over in the YouTube comment section. And we'll give you we'll give you 20 more seconds. So hop on real quick and type your guess. Again, you're guessing how many units of the National Park Service, of the 419 National Park Service units.
5, 4,
what?
3,
give them a few more.
2,
wow.
1.
No, we'll give you a few more. So come on, get off the couch, go to your computer, type in how many of the units of the National Park Service do you think have a connection to the trains. Little did they know that they would be getting a quiz tonight here. But hey, it's about 7:25, and I want to make sure people are awake and paying attention 25 minutes into our presentation tonight.
Probably asleep.
Hey, all right, type it in. All right. So you say 10?
I say 10.
Oh, so wrong as usual, Candace. 20? Think we're done?
Maybe keep going.
30? Higher? Or are we 30?
Let's go one more.
40 of the 419 have some connection to a train? What? 50? Well, that's about right. About 50 units, at least 50 units, if not more, of the 419 units of the National Park Service have something to do with railroads and trains. So talk about a link. So that's more than 10% of the National Park Service units in the country that are currently units of the National Park Service actually have sometimes the whole park is really about the trains, or sometimes there's some small link to trains. So tonight we're going to go through, this is the bulk of our presentation here, about some of the National Park Service units, especially ones that Candace and I have had the chance to visit, that have at least something to do, or most of the park has something to do with trains. So where do we start out with?
We're going to start at the Allegheny Portage Railroad in Pennsylvania.
All right.
This park tells visitors about the first railroad across the Allegheny Mountains. The original railroad line was built in the 1830s. Some of the original roadbed has been restored.
Oh, look who it is. There comes trouble.
Exhibits at the Engine House number 6 explain the Allegheny Portage Railroad's power. Railroad cars up the steep mountain.
What's that standing between the tracks? Is that the 2715? Oh, wait, no, it's just Candace, Soul Puffer Pete. Oh, then we have the Amistad National Recreation Area in Texas.
The Sunset Limited, an Amtrak train, runs through this park. The train passes 275 feet above the Pecos River on a high bridge. The park sits on the border of Texas and Mexico.
Yeah, we got a chance to go down there, and you can actually drive on the dam, and, well, during non-COVID times, you can actually cross into Mexico. How about that? And there's a picture of a special train running across the Pecos River High Bridge. I believe that's the 4449, which is kept in Oregon, as running across the bridge in that park. And there's a view from the Pecos High Bridge, taken out at the back of the Sunset Limited. We got to do this train just last month. We rode from Los Angeles to St. Louis, and we got to go across the Pecos River High Bridge during our vacation between Christmas and New Year's just a couple weeks ago.
Well, then there's Big South Fork.
Yes, National River and Recreation Area.
Yes, that's in Kentucky and Tennessee. The Kentucky and Tennessee Railroad operated a tourist train to the Blue Heron Coal Mining Complex in the park. It was actually a freight railroad from 1906 until 2005.
And there's an engine from it. This diesel engine, the 106, was first used to haul coal shipments. It's now used for the tourist railroad at Big South Fork.
Well, then we have the Black Canyon National Park in Colorado. From 1881 to 1940, the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad operated a narrow gauge rail line through the part of what would be the park. There's a display here nearby.
Oh, where is that on display at?
The Curacante National Recreation Area.
Oh, okay. I wonder if the little man in the Rio Grande van who always shows up at the train shows, I bet he's been out to the Black Canyon of the Gunnison, the Rio Grande man van, and his painted Rio Grande van.
Yes.
Visitors to the Curacante National Recreation Area next to Black Canyon of the Gunnison can currently see this display about Denver and Rio Grande Western train. And then, of course, we have here in the Midwest, the Cuyahoga Valley, which we already mentioned. That's where the Silver Lariat got sold to. The Baltimore and Ohio Railroad operated a rail line through the park from 1880 to 1985. It was then turned into a tourist railroad that is used by many to see the sights of the park. Oh, look who it is. There comes trouble again.
Well, yeah, the one up above.
Yeah, the one in the pink and gray coat.
The train through the Cuyahoga Valley National Park features a vintage 1950s dome car, which is great for viewing the scenery. A National Park Service volunteer from the Cuyahoga Valley points out some of the landmarks the dome car passes by.
And of course, Death Valley in California. Oh, we were there in September of last year, and it was up to 130 degrees. So it was one of the places that Candace, I never thought I'd hear her say, "Oh, this is just a little too warm for me." She actually wore shorts there. The Death Valley Railroad constructed a narrow gauge line through the area in 1914. It was 20 miles long and served the Ryan, California mining camp. A vintage steam engine is on display at the Furnace Creek Visitor Center. Oh, and look at that. We got to go to the ghost town of Rhyolite, and we got to see my favorite Union Pacific caboose out there.
Yep. I always love this photo of it in black and white. It really captures the story of the caboose. There's a lot of great photo opportunities near Death Valley National Park of these things.
This one's just outside. It's on Bureau of Land Management land, but very close to Death Valley National Park. It's the Rhyolite ghost town, and just 5 minutes or so outside the park if you ever get a chance to visit. And here's a look inside the caboose, but unfortunately now they have it fenced off on our most recent visit when we went there in September of 2020. And but we used to be able to get right up and look into the caboose, but not any longer. So you'll just have to take our picture there, I guess, for...
Well, then, of course, there's Denali National Park in Alaska. Every year, thousands of tourists ride the very scenic Alaskan Railroad through Denali. The train runs between the cities of Anchorage and Fairbanks.
Yeah, there's a picture that we took. The Alaskan Railroad pulls an observation car just north of Denali National. Oh, and there comes double trouble.
Yes.
That's our friend Mike from outside Boston. We got to ride together probably 2014, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
Observation car on the Alaska Railroad is a great way to see the sea.
Well, did you know that Gateway National Park,
Arch.
yes, in Missouri.
Yes.
Did you know that there's a railroad tunnel that runs underneath the Gateway Arch in St. Louis, Missouri?
I did not.
Both the Amtrak passenger train and freight trains will use this line sometimes.
Oh, look, there's a picture of the tunnel that we took earlier last year sometime. Well, I guess one of the main routes between St. Louis and Chicago runs underneath the Gateway Arch. This is one of two ways that the train can take between Alton and coming into the Gateway Station in downtown St. Louis. Sometimes they come over the bridge just south of the arch, but sometimes they are also routed onto this alternative route that passes through a tunnel through the Gateway Arch National Park.
Well, then here's where it ended.
Well, began and ended.
The Golden Spike National Historic Site in Utah. The park honors the location of where the Union Pacific Railroad and the Central Pacific Railroad met to form the Transcontinental Railroad in May of 1869.
Yeah, just a year and a half ago, 2 years ago now, it was the 150th anniversary.
That's right.
Not too long ago, just a couple years ago.
And here's one of our favorite rangers.
Is that Jarvis?
That is Ranger Jarvis.
Ah, he's at Mammoth Cave in Kentucky now.
He is, but he gave a great program on the steam engine that's behind him. It's a full-size replica of the engine used at the joining of the Transcontinental Railroad, and the Rangers talk about this here at Golden Spike. Here's one of the exhibits in the Visitor Center, 10 miles of track laid in one day, April 28, 1869.
Of course, we have Grand Canyon National Park. The Santa Fe Railroad built a branch line to the south rim of the Grand Canyon in 1901. Now, it wasn't until 1919, as we mentioned earlier, that Grand Canyon became a tourist railroad park today. Steam engines are still sometimes used to transport passengers from Williams, Arizona to Grand Canyon's south rim. The Grand Canyon Railroad also has scenic full-length dome cars that are awesome for viewing the desert.
Well, of course, then there's Hot Springs National Park in Arkansas. The Hot Springs Railroad, better known as Diamond Joe Line.
Oh, wait, as opposed to Big Joe Kaczynski.
No, Diamond Joe.
Oh, this isn't Joe Kaczynski?
This is Diamond Joe.
Diamond Joe.
The Diamond Joe Line.
All right.
It was 25 miles long and connected the park to Malvern. Hot Springs was established as a reserve in 1832. Here's a view of the historic train station that passengers use to reach Hot Springs National Park.
This park preserves down in Plains, Georgia, Jimmy Carter National Historic Site, the hometown of President Jimmy Carter. Now, he still lives in the town. The depot served as his election headquarters and as part of the The train depot serves as the presidential campaign headquarters for Jimmy Carter, and again is part of the park. We got to visit in 2016, I believe, and we actually got to attend a church service
with President Carter.
And we were not more than 5 feet away from President Carter while he gave he taught Sunday school, which is pretty cool. Maranatha Baptist Church, which is, I don't know if it's part of the park or it's its own separate thing.
I think separate. Usually church and state separate,
right.
you know.
All right, but they still have the depot. And there's a look inside the depot at the Jimmy Carter National Historic Site. It maintains a small museum about Jimmy and his use of the train to arrive and depart from his hometown of Plains, Georgia.
Here's a picture of us with President Carter and his wife.
Yeah, Rosalind, was quite an honor to be asked to take a photo with the former president, who was actually president when we were both born in the late
Wow,
70s.
to think of, wow.
Yeah,
that's pretty awesome.
All right. Oh, and look, this is where we are tonight. We're sitting 7:40 p.m. on a Sunday night underground, several hundred feet. By the way, our first virtual program, literally underground. Do you think this is the very first PowerPoint presentation ever given 500 whatever we are below the surface? The first underground PowerPoint presentation?
Possibly so.
We'll have to contact the Guinness Book of World Records, as we are sitting underground here at 7:40 at night on a Sunday. I hope they let us back out, because I think closing time was like at 5 o'clock. So I'm hoping when we're done with this presentation that they remember that we're under here.
Well, I made arrangements for myself.
Really? Well, that figures. We are tonight we are coming to you live from Keweenaw National Historic Park in Michigan. As I mentioned at the beginning, we're located in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan in the region's rich copper mining history. At the Quincy Mine, visitors can ride a tram and see a former working mine. Oh, look, there's Candace from earlier today.
Getting ready to ride the Quincy Mine.
This is another mine, by the way. This is not the one we are in tonight. They have another mine that you ride this tram in. Oh, look, she looks so cute in her miner's hat and jacket.
Yes, they actually require you to wear a hard hat, because they don't want you to hit your head or anything to fall on you. And then also,
even though you have a hard head, they still required you to wear the hat.
Also, to protect your clothing too, they make you wear the miner's jacket.
Yes.
And because it can be cold too.
Yes, especially in January. So it's actually warmer down here tonight, because it's almost going to be below zero tonight on the surface. So I might just stay in the mine. It's going to be a lot warmer down here.
You go for it.
All right. And this is one of the miners, a National Park Service volunteer who led us on a copper tour earlier today. He leads one of the tours.
The Klondike Gold Rush National Historic Park in Alaska and partially in Washington State. The Alaska unit of the park features a ride on the Yukon and White Pass Railroad, which was built at the end of the Klondike Gold Rush period. That was in 1897 and 98. It is now a tourist train.
And we got to go up there and see that a few years ago. The Yukon and White Pass begins in Skagway, Alaska, and crosses the border into British Columbia and into Yukon, Canada.
Here's a picture of us, of course, on the back platform. We always have to get our picture with the drumhead, and it's always a beautiful picture place to get your picture taken is on the back platform.
And then there's Lowell National Historic Park in Massachusetts, outside of Boston. Visitors explore Lowell National Historic Park in Massachusetts through a boat, a trolley, or a walking tour to learn about the history of industry and labor. Again, this is just outside Boston, and you can incorporate it in your next visit. This is the trolley ride. We got to do this with my friend Mike a few years ago. Visitors to Lowell National Historic Park can experience a historic streetcar ride. Various steam engines and passenger train equipment from the Boston and Maine Railroad are on display here at Lowell National Historical Park.
Well, then, of course, my favorite is the Mammoth Cave National Park in Kentucky. The Mammoth Cave Railroad was a branch line off the Louisville and Nashville Railroad to bring tourists in to explore the world's largest caves. Some of the cars are on display here. Here are some of those cars that are on display from the historic Mammoth Cave Railroad Company, and they're on display right by the visitor center.
Oh, look, it's the number 4. And then we have Mojave National Preserve out of Southern California. The Santa Fe and the Union Pacific and several other railroads were built through what became the Mojave National Preserve. It didn't become a National Park Service unit until 1994. What's really cool is we were driving, I believe, between Las Vegas and Los Angeles, and the Union Pacific's former depot at Kelso, California, now serves as a visitor center for Mojave National Preserve. And they even have the old historic lunch counter. They have little candies and cookies and things that you can buy, soda pop and coffee. But they did a beautiful job of restoring the interior of the National Park Service Visitor Center / former Union Pacific Depot.
New River Gorge in West Virginia. Amtrak's Cardinal, which runs between Chicago and New York, passes through the heart of the New River Gorge National River and Scenic Unit in the Appalachians.
There's a picture we took. The New River Gorge is one of the most scenic locations east of the Mississippi in the Appalachian Mountains. And you do get a good view. If you look along, you see along the river, and just to the left of that, you see a little gap in the trees, and that is the railroad line used by the Cardinal. And you can see there actually, through portions of the gorge, there are 2 railroad lines. Of course, Amtrak only uses one, but that line both sides of the gorge. Here's a beautiful fall picture through the gorge. And of course, the New River did excursions for many years, and a new company took it over in 2019. Did not run in 2020, a couple months ago, but I believe they're hoping to run this year in 2021. But most Octobers, owners of historic rail cars run excursions through the New River Gorge National River. For many years, it was the Collis P. Huntington Railroad Society running the New River train excursions, and it's been a new company took it over in 2019, and will hopefully make a go of it here in 2021.
Petrified Forest in Arizona. The Santa Fe's main line from Chicago to Los Angeles runs through this park. Fred Harvey, a partner of the Santa Fe, operated some of the park's hotels and cafes.
Oh, look, you're smaller than a tree.
Here I am with one of the Fred Harvey dining kitchen areas.
Curios and fountain.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
The historic building is still located at the south end of the Petrified Forest. There's Robert with the Santa Fe Railroad sign. It's just located right underneath him.
Yeah, so if you ever take the Southwest Chief, you have passed through just a small portion of the Petrified Forest National Park, but definitely go back and visit, because I don't think you really see all that much from the train. I don't even know if you really see any of the petrified logs or anything like that, but yeah, go back and check it out. But I guess technically the park. Pullman National Monument on Chicago's South Side preserves the factory where sleeping cars were manufactured in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. It became a National Park Service unit about 6 years ago now, and started 2015. Pullman National Monument has only been part again for the National Park Service since 2015. Plans are currently underway here in 2021 for a new visitor center. And what we have on your screen is their vision of what all of the park will entail. I know they're hoping to get some new, some actual Pullman equipment to put on display. Restoration of the Hotel Florence, an arcade building with interpretive attractions, livery stables, Pullman Historic District streetscape enhancements, and they will have a commuter link off the South Shore and the Metro Electric. Expanded Pullman Porter Museum at the Firehouse, a rear yard interpretive corridor, a new industrial development, and so they're really hoping this will economically impact the south side of Chicago.
Well, then there's Steamtown.
Steamtown. Yeah.
Established in 1986. Wow, that hasn't been very long ago.
No, I think it was under private ownership before that, and then became part of the Park Service from what I remember.
This park preserves the rail shops and yards of Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad. There's shop tours, train rides, and numerous exhibits can be seen here.
Did we do the shop tour? I think we did.
We did do the shop tour.
Did we do the shop tour?
Yeah.
I know I did with my friend Mike. I was trying to remember if we...
And there was our ranger that gave us the tour.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It's one of the national... I think probably that and Golden Spike probably have the most direct connection between trains and the National Park Service. And oh, look who it is. There comes Trouble again.
There we go. My favorite place to get a picture with the drumhead.
Yeah, she likes to be at the rear of a historic coach car. And this is Wrangell St. Elias National Park in Alaska. Well, who would think that some national park in the middle of Alaska would have a connection to trains? The only road, and by the way, Wrangell St. Elias is America's largest national park. So if you're ever looking to stump somebody at a trivia show, or maybe you're ever going to be on a revamp of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, a lot of people say, well, say Yellowstone, Yosemite, Death Valley. Nope, Wrangell St. Elias in Alaska is America's largest national park, but also one of the least visited. The main road to the park was actually a railroad bed for a mining railroad. Some of the original trestle bridges were still here, and we got to visit this when we did some of the rarer national parks of Alaska a few years. Oh, there comes Trouble again. She's just in every slide.
Pretty much. I was standing on the main road through the park. This is where was built on the old railroad right-of-way. And there's another wooden trestle used slowly decaying in the harsh Alaskan weather.
Looks like something you'd build out of toothpicks in kindergarten.
I would use popsicle sticks.
Oh, okay. So while we don't have time, it's after 7:50 here already. So as we're going almost on an hour of this presentation, and we both want to get to the mine entrance here to see if they left us in overnight, and if we're going to be back with you in 2 weeks for another program. Just some of the other National Park Service units with a railroad connection that we didn't have time to include in this presentation, but are also worth a mention. Benzold Fort National Historic Site in Colorado, Brown versus the Board of Education National Historic Site in Kansas, Bryce Canyon National Park in Utah, the Buffalo National River in Arkansas, Cedar Breaks National Monument in Utah,
Fort Smith National Historic Site in Arkansas, Fort Vancouver National Historic Site in Oregon and Washington, Glacier National Park in Montana, the Grand Tetons National Park in Wyoming, and the Grant Cooler Ranch National Historic Site in Montana.
Also, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, situated on the border of Tennessee and North Carolina, Indiana Dunes National Park in Indiana, Monocacy National Battlefield in Maryland, the North Cascades National Park in Washington State, Ocmulgee National Monument in Georgia,
Olympic National Park in Washington, Ozark National Scenic River in Missouri, the Rocky Mountains National Park in Colorado, Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park in California.
Hey, we got to visit there last September in 2020.
Yes.
It's beautiful, the tree.
And Shenandoah National Park in Virginia.
Also, the Statue of Liberty National Monument in New Jersey and New York, and a lot of people wonder what it has to do with Statue of Liberty National Monument. Well, after a lot of immigrants were arrived on Ellis Island, which is part of the park, a lot of them took the ferry over and took the Lackawanna train station to destinations across the all across the United States. My own grandfather, who took the train to Chicago. Sunset Crater National Monument in Arizona, Walnut Canyon National Monument in Arizona, Yellowstone National Park in Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming, Yosemite National Park, California.
And then finally, Zion National Park in Utah. Curious what the connection is between some of these parks and the railroad? Check out www.nps.gov/parkhistory/onlinebooks/nps/railroads
Yeah, one more time, www.nps.gov/park history, all one word, park history, /online books with an underscore between online and books, /NPS /railroads.pdf. And that's where we got a lot of our information for our hour-long presentation with you this evening.
Educational materials from the Rail Rangers. We have our Midwest Rail Ranger route guidebooks available for sale.
So yeah, if you're planning, we want to mention that we go through, some of the routes go through national parks. For example, the St. Louis Arch, which you see on the lower left-hand side of your screen, the Gateway National Recreation Area, and also goes pretty close to Abraham Lincoln's house in Springfield and the I&M Canal. So a lot of our route guide books will have more information about some of the national park units that we go through. These are 10 of the railroad route guide books that Candace and I and the other Midwest Rail Rangers team have written for you. We focus on the Midwest because that's the region that we know the best. So if you're going on a train ride, especially right now, you're being responsible and being socially distanced and going on train rides this winter by yourself, but you still want to learn about things along the route, well, go ahead and pick up one of our route guide books that you see. And one of our newest books
is Chicago to South Bend, Indiana. From downtown Chicago to the South Bend, Indiana airport.
Yeah, that's our 11th route guide book that you can buy and available for sale. And of course, we have
ebooks and
podcasts. So a lot of people have requested that they don't want to buy the books, a physical book, and carry it with them on the train because it is a lot to carry. So we have our ebooks, which you can download to maybe you're going to bring your laptop or your e-reader or anything that carries a PDF, even your phone. You can download the ebooks on there. And of course, our podcasts are popular as well. There's Dave with us looking like a radio DJ, our treasurer Dave Poole, looking all stylish there with his earmuffs on. And he is recording a podcast, and you want to hear what one of our podcasts looks like during the time that we're not on the South Shore because of COVID-19. We have made two of our podcasts available completely free to download. That's Chicago to South Bend and South Bend to Chicago, both the eastbound and the westbound South Shore narration. So if you want to hear just get a sample of what one of our podcasts looks like, download those completely free of charge, those two routes, but we have them for all the other routes, so St. Louis or Milwaukee or St. Paul, wherever you're going. But if you want to get a sample of that, it's kind of fun because you get to listen to our narration just like we're on the train with you. So for more information about our books, ebooks, and podcasts, where can people go?
They can go to www.midwestrails.com.
And for more information about our educational programs aboard trains,
they can go to www.railrangers.org.
And that is the end of our presentation, our PowerPoint from
Down in the Mine.
Yeah, all right. Can we cut off the computer, whoever's controlling this, back at our headquarters in Barron, Wisconsin, so you can actually see us here in the mine?
Well,
thanks for joining us.
It was a bat, by the way. It almost tried to bite me. Yeah. Well, we are, like I said, we got our hard hats on. We got to make our way back up into the snow. It's actually, what's kind of cool in the summer, it's cooler down here in the copper mines. But it is actually in the wintertime, like now, it's actually warmer. So when we came down here, it was about 40 degrees warmer than it was at the surface. So we're enjoying it nice and toasty down here. We don't really want to go back where it's below zero up at the surface. It's about 50, 60 degrees down here in the mine. I don't know if you can see us, but yes, that is a mine. And I'm going to flip this around so people can see that. I'm not kidding. We are literally, this is not my basement. Right? Some people are like, are they really in a copper mine broadcasting live for the club? Yes, we are literally in a mine.
The magics of the internet.
The magic of the internet, that we can broadcast to you live from a copper mine, 500 some miles from Chicago. But I guess we got to wrap up our presentation, and we gotta get back up on the surface. So on behalf of the Midwest Rail Rangers, 20th Century Railroad Club of Chicago, and all our partners, thanks for joining us for our very first virtual education program of the year. We hope to be back riding with the rails, on the rails with you later this year, but we're going to keep continuing our virtual education programs here for you, and hope you enjoyed tonight's program again on National Park and Trains.
See you next time.
All right, bye.